welcome to episode 130 of Retro Encounter, RPG fans' topic-specific podcast that goes on every week. I'm Mike Sollosi, I'm your host from today, and we have 5, including me, Retro Encounter panelists here for the very first episode of Zelda Month. So let's introduce them in reverse alphabetical order, because why not? Starting with Peter Triezenberg.
Putting me on the spot here. I'm Peter Triezenberg. I have Fury on the boards and on Twitter, and da-da-da-da!
Putting you on the spot. Come on, man. You have only been on, okay, let's see, 1, 2, 3, carry the 2, 4, 5. You've been on literally more than 50 of these, so come on. You don't,
okay, fair enough.
You don't have to get be fussy about that. And joining Peter and I is Steph Sybydlo.
You could call me the Stiff Meister. No. That was a terrible entrance. Anyways, you can find me as Dice SMS on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else.
We usually save that for the end, but I mean that's very proactive of you, Steph.
I heard I have Fury, and I was just like, okay, I guess we're doing that now.
Might as well. I'm just throwing everybody off today. I apologize.
No, it's all good. Peter is our news editor at RPG Fan, and Steph is our social media mistress. And joining the three of us, we have 2 reviews editors. And the first of whom is Rob Rogan.
Hey. I don't have anything witty to say as an intro. Thanks for having me.
The tone of your dulcet tones are witty enough.
Yeah, you got the best radio-ready voice of the 5 of us, Rob. And this is the first time you and I have spoken, Roro. I probably shouldn't call you Roro. I apologize. I've only been privately calling you that for a year. But yeah,
you're not the first. You're not the first.
It's all good. You were on a podcast episode, on a retro episode a few months ago, Rob, talking about Undertale with Chris and Dom. But this is the first time we've been on an episode together, which I cannot say of our final panelist, Nathan Lee.
Hey, I went on Smashing on the boards and Smashing 27 on Twitter.
All right, yeah, Nathan, you and I talked about Monster Hunter a few months ago, and I have basically been talking about Monster Hunter nonstop since, so nothing has changed between us.
Nope, nothing.
Yep. Okay, well, I was going to do my top 15 monsters, right? Okay, I'll compromise and make it a top 30. But anyway, that's for a future episode, probably not. The current episode, as I mentioned probably 15 minutes ago, is the first of Legend of Zelda month here at Retro Encounter, and in the spirit of our favorite Final Fantasy episode and favorite Pokemon Generations episode from last year, we are going to try and discuss the entire Zelda series and then nail down a favorite Legend of Zelda game official for this podcast.
Did somebody actually pick Zelda 2 in their lot?
No, nobody voted for Zelda 2, but that's a spoiler. Right. That's a spoiler, Steph, and people are very sensitive about spoilers.
I just want to get that out of the way.
We will get there. But okay, yeah. Spoiler alert. Nobody voted for Zelda 2, so I apologize.
We probably could devote an entire episode to Zelda 2, but the problem is that one of us would have to play Zelda 2.
If somebody put CDI, they were immediately expelled from the podcast. So
this podcast, this podcast was 6 people, but one person voted for. I think the Wand of Gamelon, so they were banned forever. I won't say who it is. But
we did like the old Rogan style. We just got rid of their name from the site, took all of their articles down and everything.
We kicked them down the well 300 style.
This is retro! Okay, I'll stop. The fewer Frank Miller references in this podcast, the better.
Yeah, it's probably the best.
But this is similar to the Final Fantasy episode from last year, where before the podcast began, I had all 5 of us basically vote on their favorite Zelda game. Each person gave me 5 games, and I added my own 5 to the list. And based on those votes, we collected a final 4. And at the end of this podcast, we're going to vote between those 4 for our favorite Legend of Zelda game. But before we do that, we're going to go over the rest of the series, basically eliminating them from a list of 19 down to 4, and then discussing those 4 in greater detail. So everyone understands the format, which probably is too involved for this podcast being what it is.
Not at all, but I look forward to much controversy.
I have some bones to pick, let's say. I'm holding a Moblin arm like a baseball bat right now. Yeah, but
right,
Peter and I have
everybody.
Yeah, Peter and I have ended our friendship and then reignited it at least twice over the course of this podcast history, for based on episodes where you vote on things.
This is true.
All right, but slow it down. We're going to go over the 15 Zelda games that are not finalists in our little exercise. I'll just throw 3 of them out there right now. Four Swords Adventures, Four Swords, and Link's Crossbow Training are not going to be discussed.
Fair enough. I do like crossbow training. That game just felt nice.
It's a nice little tech demo for the Wii, but no one voted for it. No one voted for any of those 3.
That's fine.
Four Swords and Four Swords Adventures are pretty fun, but they were prohibited. You had to get a lot of external peripherals to get those games to work properly.
Well,
It was so annoying.
For Four Swords,
Nintendo had the
definitely.
original selfie with this stupid Game Boy camera thing, but it was such a pain in the butt to use.
There were a bunch of interesting implementations of that Game Boy Advance connection to a GameCube, the best of which being Pac-Man Versus, and I will accept no arguments to the contrary. But
no, you're right.
But like basing an entire game off of it was a little challenging, and games like Four Swords Adventures and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles were cool, but not great. Rob, did you play any of these 3 that we're not going to talk about much?
I did not actually. I think
Yeah,
I have.
they're not really a big loss, I guess, right?
No, I think I may have downloaded it on my 3DS when it was free some weekend or something like that. A couple years ago.
You
Right.
played for like 15 minutes.
That's
Like,
what my
that's all right.
I think
I'm hungry.
You can probably beat the Four Swords in 15 minutes. I don't know. It was a small
short?
side game with a multiplayer focus that came with the GBA version of A Link to the Past, which spoiler alert we'll talk about eventually. But yeah, none of those 3 got a single vote from us, so they're being cut from the list. And also, I guess it goes without saying, the Satellaview BS Zelda games and the Philips CDI Zelda Trio are not even going to be discussed. Like, they don't even count. So that's another 6 gone, I guess. Or I don't remember how many Satellaview Zelda games there were. But so
I
we're
think
going.
there were 3.
Yeah,
so-
you strike them from history books.
Yeah, I mean, what was Satellaview? Wasn't it like some weird Japanese Super Nintendo internet thing?
Rumor has it is that people who worked on that game don't even tell anybody they worked on that game.
Gross.
That's what you know it went well.
It's so detrimental.
Yeah, I don't even know what those games are. I've seen videos on YouTube and they aren't exactly impressive. So
They make me ill to watch.
I think one of them was literally just A Link to the Past.
Oh.
yeah,
Like,
it was
Really?
called, it was called BS Zelda or Zelda BS.
Oh, yeah, and I've seen those weird ones.
broadcast satellite, but
That's
I mean,
what
it's
it was.
still like, and it was a satellite program. They would transmit to a special receiver, and it was only available during a certain part of the day.
Yes, Satellaview was the name of that receiver, and
Why would they make that so difficult?
I don't
some
know.
of that, some of these games actually had like voice acting, like broadcasted over the radio. So like you'd be playing Zelda, and someone would be narrating the dialogue, but only within the hour that you were playing the game.
That's a terrible idea.
It's
Well,
so weird.
I mean, like
Kind of cool, but it's
Did they want
Kinda
anyone
cool.
to play this?
early internet got real weird, I think is the verdict with the Satellaview Zelda games. But we're not talking about those. I'm going to throw out another group of 3 Zelda games that did not get any votes from the 5 of us. And I'm not that surprised because there's a lot of good Zelda games. 3 handheld ones: the Minish Cap, Oracle of Ages, and Oracle of Seasons did not get any votes at all.
That's so sad.
Yeah, the Capcom trio.
Yes, and I like those 3 games a lot. I'm actually in the middle of a run of Oracle of
And that's
Seasons
why I
right
was
now.
so mad to do this podcast because you're trying to get me to limit to 4, you jerk.
I limited you to 5, and you were also mad at about that.
Yeah. We had very passionate off-screen anger session.
But not really. I think you just sent me a frowny face emoji. But
There you go.
I guess it was a passionate emoji.
That's a pretty angry emoji.
The new anger.
But yeah, the Capcom trio of games are really good. Like Oracle of Ages and Seasons are sort of in the model of Link's Awakening in that you have your action
Okay, hot
dominated by
take,
2
they're
buttons.
better than Link's Awakening.
Okay, that's a scorching hot take, and you just burned the roof of my mouth with that. But they're good. Like mechanically, they have a lot of cool implementations of that 2D sort of almost like tile-based gameplay. Because sort of every single thing in the game has to fit in a little Link-sized square. But it's I like them a lot, but no one voted for them.
Damn it. I should have done it. Should have been me.
I'm not going to ask you, Nathan, for reasons we'll get to later. But Peter, what are your thoughts on the Capcom trio?
Okay, so full disclosure, I have all three of them and haven't touched them.
Oh, bro.
I know they're on my short list. I have Minish Cap on the Wii U Virtual Console, and I have the 3DS versions of both Oracle games.
I won't lie, I'm a bit of a brat. It's really hard to go back to, dare say, such, old school graphics.
I'd say it's there. It's on my list, but I feel like I'm going to need to be in a very specific mindset to.
Yeah,
enjoy
you got to be in a good
playing
mood
it.
for that.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said a minute ago, I am in the middle of a replay of Oracle of Seasons now, and it's way easier than I remember. Like the first dungeon in it is called the Gnarled Root Dungeon, and it is insultingly easy. Like it even made me a little bit mad. It's the dumbest Zelda dungeon I've ever played. But the world map in Seasons is really cool with the changing seasons to solve puzzles. And it gates away sections of the map with skills in a very Metroidvania-esque cool way that definitely has modern design sensibilities baked in there. But they're all three of them are good. We'll talk about the Minish Cap later this month in a dedicated episode, which I'm excited to record, which means I'll also probably have to replay Minish Cap, which I'm less excited for. But,
Oof.
yeah.
Wow.
Not a fan, huh?
I think Minish Cap is good. I enjoyed it when I played it, but it's been like 12 years or something, maybe longer, and I'm a little bit leery about having to go back to it, but we'll see
All
how
in
that
favor of
goes.
me taking over this podcast, say aye. I'm just kidding. You're doing okay.
Mike is channeling his inner Jimmy Kimmel right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm allowed to do the cricket sound effect at least once every 2 months or so.
I just hated that it's 4 dungeons.
Yeah, it's only 4 dungeons. One of them is like sort of a double dungeon that has multiple layers, and and it's sort of a small overworld too. But the fact that you explore sections of it essentially twice, both as an inch high and as a full size human, and that there's so many pieces of heart in there. I think aren't there like 30 pieces of heart or something crazy?
They've condensed that world really nicely, actually.
Yeah,
it's pretty stuffed.
Yeah, it's dense with collectibles and items, and there's those statues or trophies that you also find. There's a lot of things in Minish Cap.
The
It does have a lot of Capcom's like really nice sprite work going down on it too.
Oh yeah, late 90s, early 2000s Capcom sprites are just the best. But I think we've already talked enough about this trio of handheld games. Nobody voted for them, so they're not in anyone's top 5.
I still got to say a good thing or two about it. All right.
Yeah, and that's about all the time we have, because I don't want this to turn into the Final Fantasy Memoria episode that went 3+ hours. Oh, yikes.
Wow.
It was fun, but it was too long, so we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to talk about 2 games that are not in the Final 4, but there were some votes involved here. Neither of the NES games, the original Legend of Zelda or Zelda 2 Adventure of Link, are in the Final 4. Nobody voted for Zelda 2, which we did say earlier, but Rob, you did vote for the OG Legend of Zelda, and it was one of your 5 votes. So, tell us briefly what you love about the first Legend of Zelda and why you voted for it.
Well, I mean, it was the first Legend of Zelda, right?
It's never a good enough reason for me. I bet you like
So-
Tetris a lot too.
Hey,
So I feel like
I will take no disrespect about Tetris in this podcast, which had its own dedicated episode 2 years, 2 years ago.
I forgot that we did that.
Tetris is the best Game Boy RPG ever made.
It's gonna get trilogy of films.
Oh god! Oh my god! I forgot about that.
Oh my god, I gotta look this up now.
All right, so Rob, you did not vote for Tetris. You voted for Legend of Zelda 1. So
I mean, I have fond memories of playing it. I may be one of the older folks on staff here. So I actually remember playing, the cartridge, the gold cartridge, and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And every time I've gone back to it in a year since, I have fun playing it. You know,
The mechanics are nice.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it plays well for its age. It is an NES game, right? But I just generally and legitimately enjoy my time every time I pick that game back up. You know.
I miss the days of having Link walk around a map with a giant ladder and a giant raft on his back. They should bring those back.
My dad used to be really into that game. He even made his own map like back in the day, and he'd play with my brother.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
That's good.
I also had the gold cartridge and played the first Legend of Zelda, but I never beat it. I finished either 5 or 6 dungeons, but I was definitely fascinated by the game, but I was much more into the Super Nintendo and Game Boy iterations of Zelda that I was also playing around the same time, or maybe a little later.
Yeah, I think, that's why I hold what is it, Link to the Past in high regard. That's, like, the one I started with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like if you have a fondness for that first game that you tried, especially in a series like that.
For everything, for all the games I voted for, I definitely went for the favorites, right, and not the ones I thought were the
Your
best.
own.
Right. So
right.
my own personal favorites, and all the ones I voted for, this one included, the original included, are the ones that kind of left a mark on me, right?
Yeah, and it's important. I think it's an important game to you, and it's good to represent it that way. I think the original Zelda is an interesting kind of proof of concept almost, like, and the design ethos behind it, like Miyamoto really wanted to be like to capture this spirit of adventure that he was like,
Yeah, and behind Breath of the Wild and all that, right?
Yeah, that would come back decades later, and I think that's kind of awesome. I think the original Zelda is a really great starting point for that series.
Mm-hmm. I think Miyamoto's concepts with like Mario and Zelda, where Mario were an interesting way to get to the end of a stage in a linear way, and Zelda was his exploration of non-linearity, where there isn't an obvious end goal, and you have to sort of find the end goals yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's a sophisticated idea for an NES game.
The Zelda series has always been that kind of pioneer of like what the adventure style is, I guess, sort of. Sometimes.
I would say Zelda's probably defined by its non-linearity and
it was one of the earliest to do that, to especially make it big. Then when Ocarina of Time happened, it kind of explored that in a 3D space. Now with Breath of the Wild, it's kind of changing how it looks at open world.
And we'll talk about all these games very soon, but I think we've basically exhausted Legend of Zelda 1 and Zelda 2. I mean, that was a departure.
I will say that I don't think Zelda 2 is a bad game on its own merits. The problem is that it's stacked up against the rest of the series, and it is so vastly different.
It's different, and it's challenging as hell. I think I only beat like 2 temples in that game, but in my defense, I was in the single digits age range.
I think one of the big like Nintendo people confessed that he didn't beat it either. I
helped make the game, and I never finished it.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird shift, sort of like what was it, Castlevania to Castlevania 2? Right?
Yeah.
Just a huge shift, and it's just kind of jarring. But yeah, I didn't think it was necessarily a bad game.
And Zelda 2 doesn't even have the song "Bloody Tears" to redeem its faults.
I guess without Zelda 2, we wouldn't have had Shovel Knight, so I guess that's a plus.
Oh, all right, sure. Well, anyway, I think we're about done talking about the NES Zelda duo, but we're going to talk about a different duo right now. Peter, you voted for Phantom Hourglass as one of your favorite Zelda games.
I did indeed.
But neither Phantom Hourglass nor Spirit Tracks is going to be discussed in our final 4. So tell us what you love about Phantom Hourglass.
The DS Zelda games, both of them, I thought that they were very interesting in how they applied the DS's unique features. Kind of like how Skyward Sword would later just be all motion controls, and they go in hard on making sure the mechanics are at the forefront. I liked the touchscreen controls. I liked how it implemented the puzzle mechanics into you use
was a fun concept for that, and definitely Nintendo loved using it and usually used it very well.
Yeah. Like there's that one puzzle. Do you remember this from Phantom Hourglass where you have to close the DS to stamp something from the top screen to the bottom? That stuff is great.
You literally figure that out when you're frustrated and you close the system.
And you're like, oh my god, this is happening. And then there's that one guy where you have to yell at him into the microphone to get something to trigger. So I remember I was playing the game in the room and my dad was like doing something, and I kind of looked at him, went into the bathroom, closed the door, yelled at my DS, it came out, and he's just getting this weird look.
and you have to blow into the microphone to get windmills and the wind to blow. And the stuff where you can sort of set waypoints to almost program how your ship is going to travel into certain areas is really cool. But
it's a fun way to comfort. Sorry,
Peter.
The Temple of the Ocean King is one of the worst things to ever blight this franchise.
That thing was such a pain in the ass.
And the
And
Spirit Tracks' locomotive, they're both really solid Zelda games with two giant flaws, and that
yeah,
Palace and the train tracks were huge.
yeah, and that's probably the train tracks are probably why I don't like Spirit Tracks as much, although I do enjoy it. And they took some steps to improve because they also had a central dungeon you return to. But I thought that the one in Spirit Tracks was a lot more difficult. Like it was less repetitive, but those puzzles were hard.
They made me sweat. They gave me like the sweaty gaming fingers.
Yeah, like I think I rage quit Spirit Tracks in the middle of it at my first time through because of one of those puzzles in the Tower of Spirits. I just got fed up.
I'm just getting angry thinking about the Temple of the Ocean King again.
Yeah, no, and the Temple of the Ocean King, having to revisit that all the time and replay the same puzzles is a massive pain.
Why? I will say that, for the problems with obvious flaws for that, the HD and the port games, so Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess, a lot of the quality of life adjustments they made porting those games have been some of the best in terms of ports.
So
if they remade Phantom Hourglass and allowed you to skip floors of Temple of the Ocean King, or maybe added some other things for either for the Switch or for some future DS thing, I'd be in favor of it. I rage quit that game because of the Temple of the Ocean King.
If they're willing to do it for the Triforce quest for Wind Waker, I think they would do that down the line, wherever that is.
And even we'll talk about Wind Waker later, but even how the remake allowed you to have the wind always at your back with one setting of the Wind Waker, a change like that completely changes the navigation of that game. And if they're willing to do a change like that for a port of Wind Waker, there's a lot of flaws they could correct in some of these in some of these older games. I wouldn't object to trying Phantom Hourglass again.
Because of we've kind of had a lot of bad ports and remakes right now. We're kind of sitting in a few kind of less than satisfactory ports and remakes right now.
Is that throwing shade at Secret of Mana?
It's a little.
I was throwing shade at Devil May Cry's collection because why wouldn't you up-res the menus?
Yeah, it's weird having the game in HD and the menus just look awful. I was about to be very upset with you for slighting Devil May Cry, but no, that's fair.
No, it's the game plays better than ever. But every time you pause it, it's like, oh god.
Nathan, have you played any of the DS Legend of Zelda games?
I missed out on them. I was going to pick them up a little while ago, but I just couldn't get myself to pick them up for whatever reason. I just heard too many things about them that weren't sit right with me, so that's just mechanically
they're old games now.
And,
don't age too good.
And Rob, how about you? Have you played the DS Zelda games?
I played Phantom Hourglass. I remember liking it, but I had to actually, as you guys were speaking, go back and look at what the Temple of the Ocean King was again, because that's the impression it left on me, right?
Right. Oh man, I couldn't finish that game because of the stupid Temple of the Ocean King. But
I will say it is very satisfying at the end of the game when you get the powerful. Do you
get to murder the actual Ocean King?
No. Yes.
What?
No, you don't.
Oh, damn it.
But you get to run through and murder all the phantoms in one hit, and that's really satisfying.
Okay,
and the boss
that does sound all right.
And the boss fight at the bottom is pretty cool. But then the Ocean King shows up during the ending, and he's just this giant whale, and I'm just like, it was you.
Oh, is he like the Windfish's brother or something?
Basically, actually.
All right. Well, anyway, I think it's enough talking about the DS Zelda games. None of them are in our final four. But, Nathan, you've been a little quiet the past couple games we've talked about. But there's one game that only you voted for that is not in our final four, and that is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for the Wii.
Ooh, I was going to ask about this.
All right, so, Nathan, tell us what you think are the strengths of Skyward Sword and why you voted for it.
All right, so Skyward Sword had what I think the motion controls aren't terrible. Yes, it was annoying that you had to constantly put the remote down because you had to sync or whatever. But I think it had some of the better dungeons in the Zelda series. There's a lot of things that really stood out to me. Like I can't remember the temple's name, but there's a lot of the time shifting stones where things were just
the Lanayru mining facility and the pirate ship.
Yeah, you'd be able to go back or change time around you, so go back in the present or future, or past, and then you could control and then change the dungeon
That one's
as you
really cool.
progressed. Yeah,
Those dungeons were great.
Yeah.
The Ancient Cistern, man.
Yeah,
That's a
that
great
one.
one.
Even like as far as like water dungeons, which tend to get a pretty bad rap, justified. But yeah, I like the Ancient Cistern a lot. I was a bit more iffy on Skyward Sword. I've kind of come around to it a bit more lately. I do want to replay it again as well. I think what it was is like the motion controls do work really well, but I think it's like they work 95% of the time, which sometimes still runs into issues where they kind of get gummied up.
It's that 5%. That 5% really
some of
kills
that
it.
hand holding is really annoying. Like if you're half low on battery, you're gonna have Fi nagging you until you get some full batteries. Dowsing was not that much fun.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people complaining about the hand holding in Skyward Sword. Is it only the very beginning, or is it?
No.
No, it's pretty constant.
It's a good game with some really questionable UI choices.
I really like Skyward Sword actually, but my problem with it is more the design of the world being so compartmentalized, and
you do the Hyrule Mile 3 times, like
you basically you play through the game once. It's like a bad version of Nier Automata, where like you play you go to each part of the world once, and then
you do it again.
And then you do it again, and you're solving the same puzzles and the same thing. And then the game's like, oh, PT Dub scavenger hunt time. And then you go do that, and it sucks. And
yeah, they really could have benefited from having more to do in the world. And even then, like, there wasn't much of an overworld. It's kind of like, let's drop you into this little area, and then this little area, and this little area.
I feel bad for the Loftwing. I really love the way that thing looked, and they just kind of call it the Loftwing.
Yeah, and the Cloud Sea really isn't all that fun to explore. Like there's some stuff, but it's like not enough. But I
always loved in Zelda games when you'd go someplace weird and there's just a house in the middle of nowhere and you go explore it and you can get a heart piece, you know. And
there's random houses out there.
I own a copy of Skyward Sword, and I was intending to play it. I got a Wii late, and I was like playing Wii games all over 4 or 5 years after they came out. But I never even started the copy of Skyward Sword because, first of all, there's just too many games all the time, and also it had a really mixed reception, and I was a little concerned about its reputation, so I just never started it. But I'm not going to close the door on it forever. I might get around to it eventually.
It does have some of the best dungeons in the series.
It does. What it does well, it does really well. Like some of the it's almost like an obstacle course overworld. Whenever it does that good, it's a lot of fun. There's just a few small hangups I have with it.
Yeah, it's just some of those things are just a little bit too. They kind of compile on top of each other, so a lot of people just got way too annoyed with it. But I found it it's found a lot of fun.
It does a good job for narrative, like Zelda narrative stuff too.
Oh yeah,
so that's one of the best things. This is one of the best Zeldas.
You fight a Kumadorf at the end.
A Kumadorf. But all right, that's guess that's enough about Skyward Sword. Sorry, Nathan, you were the only person that voted for it, so it's not in the final four. But
I don't know if they're gonna like port that one anytime soon, though.
I don't think they're hard with the motion controls because the Switch behaves a little bit differently with those motion controls.
Yeah, they would have to retool it, but I feel like you could do it with the Joy-Cons.
Yeah. Or you could just take out the motion controls, but that would take out like a bigger part of the game.
That's like the whole game, though.
Yeah, no,
all right,
I mean.
I'm cutting you off now because we've already gone more than 30 minutes, and we have a lot of games to get to, so no more Skyward Sword discussion. I heard that stuff. But staying in the...
Mike, there is a 72% chance that Steph is upset.
It's like we're playing like a Telltale game, and I just got the message, Steph will remember that.
Just leering over.
I am the only enlightened person among these five that voted for Link's Awakening in their top five. So, yeah.
That is so surprising. I thought more people would vote for it.
I did too.
So yeah, Link's Awakening, the Game Boy Zelda, is a really excellent game. Has a real goofy, weird tone, and gets gets strangely dark at the end as Link is completing dungeons and learning new pieces of the Windfish song. He's slowly coming to the realization that. I heard that.
I can't whistle and laugh at the same time.
That's an advanced whistling technique, but and he's
my lips aren't moist enough.
As he is, maybe you should use some chapstick. But as he's as Link is completing dungeons and learning more about the world, he's slowly realizing that when he wakes up the windfish at the top of the mountain, the world will disappear and all of the people that he's met will cease to exist. So it takes a real weird, dark tone towards the end, but I think has a lot of cool puzzles and memorable dungeons and items in it. Like there's an item that lets Link jump, which seemed like a mind blow.
Rock's Feather and Rock's Cape are the best things in
They're
that series.
awesome. Oh shoot, we should have mentioned the Rock's Cape during the Oracle of Seasons discussion.
Okay, I made sure we do it now.
Yeah. But yeah, the Rock's Feather is great. The last two dungeons, Eagle Tower and Turtle Rock, are two of the, I think, more challenging 2D Zelda dungeons ever made.
They're huge. Yeah,
it took me over a year playing that game off and on to finish the Eagles Tower. Okay, first of all, because I was, I think, 8 or 9. And
I was in the exact same situation as you, and I finished it at like some fancy event, like some wedding I was really bored at.
Oh man, I think I was probably 10 or 11, and one of my friends that had already played all of them gave me the last hint I needed to clear Eagles Tower. And that same friend, a few years later in middle school, she bought Oracle of Ages and I bought Oracle of Seasons, and then we swapped our games so we could finish out the connected story version. So I have a lot of positive memories about playing those back in the day. But anyway, Link's Awakening is really good. It has really clever puzzles and dungeons and mechanics.
And yet you are the only one who voted for it.
Yep, it's true. So it's not in our final 4. It makes me sad. Maybe not.
It's a really cool game, though.
It is really cool, yeah.
I feel like as far as handhelds, I mean, I don't know. I didn't really find the Game Boy that impressive, but it was definitely one of the must-play titles for that series, for that console.
The quality of Game Boy games varies pretty wildly. Some of them do not hold up at all, but a handful, like your Tetrises and Mario 2s and Link's Awakenings of the world are pretty good. And you can get a Link's Awakening on the 3DS for I think only $6 or $7 if you're
and Quirk.
Interested.
You must play Quirk.
I have no idea what
Metroid
Quirk is.
I say Metroid 2 is all right.
Yeah, that one's actually really good. I played a lot of that. Oh, Mario and the 6 Golden Coins.
Yep,
We're off topic.
Mario Land 2, which is really good. Mario
Pokemon
Land 2
Gold,
weirdly
Silver.
looks better than like all of the NES Marios. It's kind of strange.
It did, yeah.
I remember I replayed that semi-recently, like maybe in the 2010, 2011 range, and it was so easy. I was way easier than I thought. Like you can finish stages in it in like 20 seconds.
Was stuff like Battletoads actually easy these days, or?
I don't know.
No, that's still hard.
Like NES hard games are still hard, but like regular Game Boy games are way easy. Anyway, Link's Awakening did not make our final 4. I think we're about done talking about it. But Rob, you and I are the only 2 people that voted for this next game, and that makes me very sad indeed. A Link to the Past is not going to be in the final 4 Zelda games. Which is honestly surprising to me. I thought this was maybe not a lock. I wasn't really sure how the voting would shake out, so I was like, all right, I'll see how the votes go, and the top 4 or 5 will make it. But yeah, Link to the Past, only 2 votes, and neither of them were a favorite vote to give it an extra boost. So Rob, let's talk about
the rage from the fans already.
Hey, every 2D Zelda fan who listens to Retro Encounter just spontaneously combusted.
Swearing us off and giving us a 1-star rating.
Well, guess what? We don't actually have listeners. Boom. Roasted.
Plot twist, no jutsu.
So, but Rob, you and I both voted for Link to the Past. I like that game a lot, and I'm assuming you do too. What do you think are sort of its strengths and why it was worth a vote for you?
Well, it's interesting. It can kind of continue the discussion of what Peter was talking about with the first game. What the first game was doing, what it was trying to do. A Link to the Past sort of kind of mastered it. I guess. Right, just kind of built upon it so well. It was kind of mind-boggling how well it built on that. Actually, the concept of switching between the light and the dark worlds and all that. I mean, it was incredibly fun.
It worked out really nicely, like visually, for such an old SNES game. Like it was really fleshed out and a very well-functioning game.
It's an early SNES game, isn't it? Like 91 or 92.
Yeah, and it even had 3D in it.
Very early.
I remember replaying it. The only thing that really kind of sucked some of the joy out for me is the narrative is like almost non-existent. You're just kind of wanted as soon as you go to Kakariko. Zelda is your it's just kind of.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of plot hooks or very memorable characters in it. Like even Sahasrara is sort of forgotten by the in the second half of the game, even though you can telepathically talk to him in dungeons somehow. So
the game feels kind of empty to me. So like I love it. I think it's a great game, but I just remember feeling a bit let down by that kind of weird part, especially because now the Zelda games are so NPC focused in terms of delivering like really interesting looking characters, that this one just kind of like felt flat.
And it did the something that I think has been repeated in almost every Zelda game afterwards. It's in two phases, where you do the first set of dungeons. And then there's a plot twist or a sort of the story focus changes, and then you do a second set of dungeons. And that shift in the middle has has
you kind of feel like you grow up a little in between, don't you?
Yeah, it has varying levels. It has varying levels of drama depending on the game, but I thought it was such a big mind blow to see the entire world transform when you experience that for the first time in A Link to the Past. And and also the dungeons themselves. I mean, there's freaking 12 of them, and they're all really good.
They are good. That is one. They didn't have much of an identity on their own, which, I mean, given the hardware, I get it. But they actually had really fun puzzles and some really interesting quirks.
Yeah, some of them are sort of forgettable. Who gives a damn about the Palace of Darkness and the Eastern Palace? But I think that some of them do have more of an identity than others. But in general, when you think of the really distinctive dungeons of later Zelda games, the ones in Link to the Past run together a little bit. Rob, do you have a favorite dungeon in that game?
Not particularly, I don't think. No.
For me, it's definitely Thieves Town, which is
Thieves Town is awesome.
The dungeons in the second half are numbered, even though you can do them in almost any order, except you have to do the Palace of Darkness first. I think Thieves Town is dungeon number 5, but the concept of rescuing the maiden and then having the maiden turn into the boss was I think frightened me a little bit when I was a child. But it's the dungeons that are really good. It's it introduced the hook shot, like the best Zelda item ever, and a lot of other cool weapons. Link's Awakening is good too. Whoops. But A Link to the Past is really excellent, and I think one of the more influential Zelda games as well.
I mean,
getting magic in that,
right? But I think it's really kind of the first. It's the first one to really attempt to really make sense of a plot, right?
Yeah.
As bare bones as it actually is.
Yeah, there's a plot framework, but
it's more of like
an outline.
An adventure hook, basically. It's like a campaign hook in D&D almost. Like, this is the quest. Go do it.
Yeah, go, hero. Zelda is your sister.
But I think there's more plot hooks in the first part of the game when Zelda and Sahasrara are more involved. But in the second half,
but it's just everything is wrecked. Just
it's like, oh, everything's crazy. Here's 7 dungeons. Ready, set, go. And it's like, oh, there's no characters to tell me anything. Great. And now enemy bombs deal 5 hearts. Awesome.
Thanks, Zelda.
But Link to the Past, really good, but did not make our top 4, unfortunately.
I will say that
I think we all do look fondly on it, at least.
Yeah.
This is just a plug for there's a YouTube series called Boss Keys.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. If you haven't been watching it, do it, because he charts the progression of the dungeon design in the series from game to game. He just wrapped up with Breath of the Wild, and his Link to the Past episode is really good. So,
how did you feel about Breath of the
Wild? Surprisingly, he actually was not too big on the Divine Beast design.
I wasn't either.
I don't think all of us are.
We'll talk about Divine Beasts later.
We'll get there in a sec. We'll get there later.
Yeah, we have a bunch of games to go through, and I don't want this to go hours and hours. So let's move on. Okay. Well, okay, Steph. Now it's your turn to pop off a little bit. One game that well, I haven't directed a specific Zelda topic to you yet, and now's that time. One game that only got 2 votes, one from Steph and one from Nathan, is Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and that is not entering our top 4. So, Steph, you were on a Majora's Mask episode of Retro Encounter, maybe 2, actually, I think 2 episodes. I want to say in 2016. Yeah, 2016. So I know that you like this game a lot. What do you think are sort of the best parts of Majora's Mask?
I feel like what I'm going to say right now wraps it all up. I would play that game every single year if the time factor didn't always intimidate me. So, like, as much as I really love it, I think it is almost a perfect game. I still always get really tense about kind of doing things within that time limit without having to erase things, or just not being able to finish by the time I'm done a dungeon just would drive me nuts. But I love that game. I just think narrative-wise, it is probably the strongest Zelda game to actually do that. And it doesn't, like, spoon-feed a lot of details, and you have to go search for a lot of them yourself. It's just so weird and so cool, and it totally works. And there is no Zelda, and there is no Ganon. It is just a completely weird and new and cool threat.
And it was basically the designers going sort of nuts with what they had in the Ocarina of Time engine, right?
Yeah, so like what it was they had to design a game, I think, within a certain time span, and they kind of worked some of their own neuroticisms into it.
I think it was within a year. Like there was like I heard a sequel out like now.
And so they were under crazy amounts of pressure, and I think some of that pressure sort of seeped its way into some of the kind of antsy dialogue, I guess, in the game. And
the anxiety of the designers is communicated within the game. That's pretty amazing.
All the NPCs are like, we gotta do these things before the moon destroys us all.
Oh, there's nothing darker than doing like a final tour of town.
Oh yeah,
no kidding.
Like, it is depressing. Like, you'll see people like hiding for their lives, scared out of their wits. I think like the two farm ranch girls or whatever, like you got the older one feeding the younger one like their weird alcohol milk because it's gonna be the last time she can. You know, like it's so depressing.
I did by time I played Majora's Mask on 3DS, I did the Anju and Cafe quest.
Oh, you did it, yeah.
And then I waited out in the room with them while I was waiting for the moon to drop. And then
wow.
Pretty much last second I reset and I was like, see ya, suckers. But
bye.
I gotta go do the other half of this quest now.
But it's sort of depressing, though. I mean, that game sort of always sits at an 11th hour, and you're always kind of, dealing with people who are always sitting, kind of on the edge of despair over one thing or another.
Yeah, it's the first one to really create, like, NPCs that had lives and were able, they had their own schedules, and you basically could communicate with them, help them out with their problems. That's part of the reason I love that game so much.
Yeah, it actually kind of made time make a bit more sense. It wasn't these like 3-minute day and night cycles in Ocarina of Time. It actually, mattered what you did and when. And you had to kind of keep a rough schedule in your mind about when people were going to be where.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was different. It made really cool side quests. I'm sad it didn't get more votes, but I get it.
Yeah, Cafe and Anju's probably is one of the best Zelda side quests ever.
Oh my god. And I just love being able to play as a Goron or a Zora. Like, that is just so cool. All the games should do that. I'm sick of the green man.
And we were talking about Zelda remakes and improvements that they made. Is there anything significantly improved in the 3DS remake of Majora's Mask?
There is.
Yeah, I've never played this game, but I have that remake sitting in a game case right now, ready to go whenever.
One of the bigger improvements is them changing one of the songs of the game, the song of Double Time. So basically, in the N64 version, you can fast forward to day or night depending on when you use the song. But in the 3DS version, you actually change to a specific hour. So if you need to do a certain quest, you can pick the hour close to where it's about to happen and then be ready for it. Whereas before, you had to kind of just wait it out.
They did put in a lot of features to make it easier for the intimidated players. And I do think that was like a big complaint, is that, for how, sort of family friendly the games are, Majora's Mask was a bit darker in tone, a bit harder to kind of digest. Gameplay wise, I definitely think it's one of the ones that a lot of people needed to take time with, but I think it's better for it. I definitely think it's better than Ocarina.
It's one of the more controversial changes to the 3DS version. I know I had a friend who was very upset about this actually. Was the bosses all received pretty significant changes, except maybe I don't think Goat was changed all that much.
Goat was a bit of a good change. He's kind of a bit easier now, which is kind of good because you have to revisit. The first boss is a bit easier, but it kind of makes it easier for future visits. You have for clean water or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
people
right.
You know what I mean?
But Georg has like a whole second phase now.
Oh, that part's no fun.
Oh, that sucked. And they actually made Zora swimming a lot less fun.
Yeah, the swimming controls in the 3DS version
were not good.
I played this game for several hours on the on the GameCube version. That's how I played Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask for the first time, since I never owned an N64.
The visual facelift of the 3DS version cannot be understated.
But there's a problem with the Majora's Mask port on that GameCube disc. Then your saves get corrupted quite often. So I never made it very far. It was
oh wow!
I had about 4 or 5 hours of progress erased, and so that just totally turned me off. But I did buy the 3DS version a year or two ago, in anticipation of actually, playing it for the first time to completion. But that just hasn't happened yet.
It's one of my favorite games. Like, I honestly got so into it. You know those games that'll keep you up a little later at night just because you gotta get a little bit further? Yep. It's cheesy to talk about, but basically that's what Majora's Mask did for me, where I was just like, what is even happening? Why is it so dark and scary in here? Why is the happy mask salesman so frightening?
But it only got 2 votes, so it's not in our final 4.
It met with a terrible fate.
And now we got one more game to talk about that is not in our final 4. This and A Link to the Past were the 2 big surprises for me personally. But Ocarina of Time only got 3 votes, not enough to make it.
You know what? I'm proud of everybody for that, then, just because. No, hear me out. It's done. It's been done. Everybody's talked about Ocarina of Time. We get it. It's good. It really is good. I do mean that non-sarcastically. You could talk about it anywhere, and it's already getting a lot of ink spilt on it.
One thing I think is interesting about Ocarina of Time, and I never owned an N64. I didn't play this until I think 2011, because I remember when when I reviewed it in my blog, I remember it was a 2011 thing I was doing. So I played it about 13 years late on the GameCube, and I liked it a lot. And the one thing I noticed was the biggest difference between like pre-Ocarina of Time and post-Ocarina of Time Zelda games is something that, Steph, you brought up earlier, how Zelda is much more character-driven and has these wacky races like starring Snidely Whiplash.
The Gorons are basically like the dogs of Hyrule, right? Like they're just this really friendly race of.
Yeah, but Gorons and Zoras and Gerudos and Dekus.
Zoras are cats, they're kind of a bit more, like a little bit more sharp, but loyal.
And like the role that the 7 Sage characters play in the game, there's way more persistent characters and way more character interactions in Ocarina and every game afterwards than there were in the first 4 Zelda games. And,
every woman in that game really wanted to get on Link.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
He was a popular guy, man. I think he might have more romance options than like a BioWare
like
character.
that one Gerudo chick is like, wow, if you were older, it's like, oh.
And then it happens, and she remembers.
That's devotion.
Boy. Yeah, and the thirstiest of them all might be Rudo, I think. But
so the only correct answer is the Gerudo chick.
What was her name? Is that Naburu or a different Gerudo?
I think it's Naburu.
Oh, yeah, okay. Naburu, yeah. Because I've been playing Breath of the Wild recently, and it took me a long time, but like, all 4 divine beasts are named after the sages in Ocarina of Time. That like Va Naboris is Naburu. Huh, that's crazy. Or I actually think it's 3 of them are named after Ocarina of Time, and one of them comes from a character from Wind Waker, I think. But yeah, Ocarina of Time, it does the Link to the Past thing where there's 3 early dungeons, and then there's a sort of scene change, and then there's a set of later dungeons. But I think that middle scene change where you draw the Master Sword and suddenly it's 10 years later and the world is entirely different, that is one of the most memorable Zelda things, full stop, I think.
Oh, it's an effective,
yeah, for sure.
It's a moment. And,
yeah.
And when you walk out of the temple, and then like there's deads all around town, you're just like, what happened here?
Yeah. What happened? Rittenhouse! Yeah.
And I think,
yeah.
I
slept too long.
I think that the later 3D Zelda dungeons are mostly better than Ocarina of Time, but Ocarina of Time has some good-ass dungeons. I mean...
Mm-hmm. I love the water temple.
That's controversial statement.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's my hot take.
Step with the takes.
I was kind of scared of the Shadow Temple. Like, I mean, like, why
the place is legitimately frightening.
Yeah, why is there so much dread surrounding a demon that loves to play the bongos? I mean,
why is there like a town on top of this like ancient dark burial site? Like, I hate Kakariko Village in this game because it's just kind of creepy.
Yeah,
I got the weird graveyard dude. They got the Skulltula house that I just want to burn down every time I go in it.
The sound that Skulltulas make are both scary and appetizing. It's like, okay, I know I'm going to get a collectible thing, but I mean, that's also just a giant chittering spider that's about the size of me.
The Shadow Temple is basically a giant continuation of the bottom of the well, which is the scariest thing a Zelda game has done ever.
Why? I hate that. I didn't even know I was done in the thing under the temple. They don't really tell you. Like, okay, you're wrapped up here. You know, get you to the entrance of the dungeon. It's just like you find the thing that you need, and they don't tell you to leave.
It's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's a sunny little beautiful town that has this dark underbelly full of demons that you have to explore.
Mm-hmm.
There's why I didn't vote Ocarina of Time. I hate that part. I hate chasing Dompe around for the hook shot, I hate those stupid charging pig bulls.
Dompe is bad in every game.
You know those charging pig bulls in the Sacred Meadow?
Yeah.
I hate those things.
Steph, you and I were the two that did not vote for Ocarina of Time, and my reasoning mostly was I think that just the 3D Zeldas that came after it are all better. It's like the combat's better, the dungeon design is better, all of them are really standing on the shoulders of giants.
I don't know how people say Twilight Princess's overworld is so bad when literally there's like nothing to do in Hyrule in Ocarina, but I don't know. I'm just full of hot takes today. So.
I think Ocarina of Time, riding a horse around Hyrule Field is cool
for the time, and for the time,
that's awesome.
That's awesome.
But all
it's a stepping stone.
Yeah,
I played hooky one day in grade school, and I was actually playing Ocarina of Time all day. That was a good day. There was pizza, pockets.
I don't have a story quite like that, but I remember I was really, really awful sick with some terrible illness when Final Fantasy 10 came out, and I borrowed my friend's PS2 and just played FF10 like 8 hours a day for a week, and it ruled.
Oh, I love that. It's sick gaming, and you just like have an excuse to sit on your ass and just basically play the entire day away.
Yeah, a lot of Blitzball played that week when I was a freshman in high school. Maybe a sophomore. We're not going to have this discussion again because obviously Blitzball is one of the best mini games of all time. But anyway,
talked about this. I was ready, fired up to go all over again.
We talked about this when Retro Encounters started.
Yeah, this was summer of 2015. I got to talk about my rediscovery of my love of Blitzball because the first time I played it, I got frustrated by it. But when I replayed it 3 years ago, I decided that I loved it. It was a weird time.
Mike, you brought me around on that mini game, and I was like, I hate you for this, but
Oh yeah, listeners, I apologize. We just spent 45 minutes talking about Blitzball, and Peter threatened murder-suicide if we didn't stop. But
it's true, he has a gun.
I'm taking you all with me.
Which is interesting, because you're in Michigan, and none of the other four of us are. But
well, I'll find a way.
Back to Ocarina of Time. Definitely groundbreaking. Definitely a huge phenomenon when it landed.
Ooh, what's everyone's favorite Ocarina song?
Ooh, okay, no, that's good. All right, starting with you, Rob. What's your favorite Ocarina song?
I might have to go with the Forest Temple song, the one that unlocked Forest Temple. Yeah.
Right on. Okay, Peter, your turn.
Song of Storms, because I love the context you get it in. Like that.
What's the context that you would say? Because that part scares the bejesus out of me every time.
Oh, I just like how you have to play it, leave the guy in the rain, and then come back as an adult, and he's like super mad about what Young Link did.
Why is he so mad? That thing gave me nightmares. The stupid Zelda 2, the Ganon game over thing.
I played Ocarina of Time really late, so when I heard the Song of Storms the first time, I'm like, oh, that's the windmill song in.
It's catchy as hell.
It's the windmill song in Oracle of Seasons, huh? I guess that's where it came from. But my favorite song is probably the Song of the Sun, just because when you first learned it, I'm like, oh, wait a second, this is just the song that plays when dawn breaks every time.
That was clever. That's actually really clever the way they work some of those in.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Nathan, what's your favorite Ocarina of Time song?
Probably either Song of Storms or Saria song.
Yeah,
and Steph, your turn. You're not allowed to skip.
I like a lot of them. I like Bolero Fire because it's kind of fun. I like the Serenade of Water just because it sounds really pretty. I don't care much for the Shadow Temple one. Yeah, I guess that one's kind of dorky.
Nah.
And the light one cares. I even like Saria's song. I mean, who does not like the Lost Woods theme? And it's nice that you actually get to talk with her before, like, her and a whole bunch of other favorite NPCs go missing in the second half of the game.
For unknown reasons.
I mean, I thought it was personally a little bit weirder and more foreboding when a similar thing happens in A Link Between Worlds, but we'll talk about that in a few
like,
minutes.
were you kind of alluding to, like, the fact that maybe the sages are dead or whatever, like the fan theory about that?
Okay, I haven't heard that fan theory, but that's dark. Like is becoming a sage in a Zelda game basically sacrificing yourself?
That's the fan theory, yeah.
And I guess that would carry over between Ocarina,
who...
Wind Waker, and Link Between Worlds, right?
Yeah. Oh, I hope not. No, I think you see them in the ending credits.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they come back at the end of Link Between Worlds. All
right, I'm going to play the game. It shouldn't take me long. We'll do an addendum at the end of the episode, and I'll chip in on whatever we just said.
This is like the Majora's Mask is purgatory theory. Like,
I like that, or the whole
like it makes sense.
I like it too, but
Squall is dead, guys.
That one doesn't make sense.
I don't get that one either. Yeah, I get that it's ludicrous that Squall survived, but I mean that's just the way these games are.
My favorite my favorite terrifying death theory is this is going to get weird. Is in the Inspector Gadget cartoon. Some people theorize that the original Inspector Gadget is actually Dr. Claw, and the Inspector Gadget that battles him is the one that was built by Penny to try and stop her favorite uncle from being evil.
That's actually really cool.
I'm into that. I think that's canon, even though it's definitely not. But
hey, that's just a game theory.
Oh god, I love how the internet really allowed, like, I mean, there's terrible conspiracy theories, but at least some fun conspiracy theories also were able to rise thanks to the internet.
Yo, I am psyched that the latest Kirby has, like, some of the lore bits coming back.
Oh god.
There is Kirby
going
lore.
Deep into Kirby lore. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And if you'd like to hear more video game urban legends, you can find me on Twitter at whatisnuance. At whatis.
Look, the deepest Kirby lore is DDD stole everyone's food.
I like calling them Dedede. We gotta do a video game pronunciation.
Or
just get mad at each other for this.
A video game pronunciation episode. All right. We're gonna listen to our 3-part Titus versus Titus spectacular episode.
Oh, you think we weren't friends after Essential 10, Mike? We're gonna fight over that.
Okay, no, I need to know, gang. What is it, Titus or Titus?
It's Titus.
Thank you. Say it again.
I agree.
Let's do the look up the Japanese one and find out exactly what it is.
It's Tita. It's Titus. But I like Titus for localization reasons.
Guys, let's just move on. This isn't worth it. We don't need to get mad about this.
It's Titus Andromedon.
But definitely, man, Saria song when I was mumbling through the Forest Temple song there. But that's another one. That's another one. Is it? I think Nathan said Saria. Is it Saria?
Oh, Saria or Saria? Yeah, I don't know.
Saria. How do you solve a problem like Saria?
Is it Link or Lonk?
Guys, it's obviously Rinku. Oh my god.
Legend of Zelda. Zorldo.
What the hell is a Sonic?
Alright, guys, we've been going almost an hour now, so we really have to move on if we're going to finish in a reasonable time and not divide this into 2 parts. It has been fun, but I mean, I have to, keep the ship rolling a little. I mean, I feel a little responsible.
All right. Are we going to get into top 4 then?
We're getting to the top 4. In, I guess, chronological order, they are The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, The Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess, Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds, and Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. All of them, all of those, they either got 4 votes from the 5 of us, or 3 votes with at least one of those being a favorite vote, which that was true of 2 of them. So, but that was the clear top 4 when I looked at all of the votes in front of me, and so those are the 4 we will be voting for between a little bit later. But let's see where to begin. Let's start with the most recent bias of all. Rob, you told us in the voting that Breath of the Wild was your favorite. I have been playing Breath of the Wild the past 2 months. I'm not done with it, but it was so amazing I voted for it too. Tell us what you think is maybe one of the great strengths of Breath of the Wild and why you have it as your favorite here on the voting screen.
Well, I mean, I think the core of it is pretty obvious and the ultimate kind of shift in the series, right? It's still exploration, but now it's open world, and there's just so much to explore and so much to find and so much cool stuff.
Worked.
Yeah, the world, like, and I reviewed the game for RPG Fan here, and I may have been a little bit higher on the story than most folks may be, but I really found that finding just the random folks just out in the wilderness, and hearing their stories and kind of
I liked helping them too. Like I like kind of taking an active part in it. It
just added to me. It just added so much depth to the world, even though the world is it's large but kind of sparsely populated, right? But just the characters and the personalities, they just added so much to the world, in my opinion, and added to the backstory and to the story itself. So beyond just the shift in gameplay mechanics, just the sense of exploration was phenomenal. I did not want to put the game down.
And I mean, I like the story a lot in Breath of the Wild as well. And again, I haven't finished it. I've done 3 of the Divine Beasts, and I have the Master Sword, but I haven't, closed the door on it yet. But I really like how a lot of Zelda games explore the idea of a post-apocalypse. Like we talked about the 10 years later in Ocarina of Time.
Back, the more technologically advanced it was.
Yeah, right. It's like now the old Sheikah civilization, where a bunch of like castle in the sky, gears and lasers and robots.
Into your tablet.
But in Breath of the Wild, like when you encounter memories from 100 years ago and meet the ghosts of the characters from 100 years ago, they feel like really fully realized characters. And like the 4 Zelda and the 4 champions, I think are among the most memorable and cool characters from Breath of the Wild. And even though you're really only finding memories of them and technically their legacies and not meeting them directly, it's really cool. And even things like the big Goron champion seeing his grandson.
I liked him. He was so
and the grandson sort of being inspired by seeing his legendary great grandfather that he's always heard about. It's just there's a lot of really sweet moments here, and in like continuing the tradition of Zora's being hella thirsty for Link. There's one of those in this game too.
Now the internet is hella thirsty for the Zora.
Oh man, Prince okay, look, Prince Sidon, he's cut. Look at that.
What he's dreaming. Yeah, he's just a dreamboat.
That is a very sexy fish man. Yeah. And this is the year where the Sexy Fishman movie won Best Picture.
Yeah, geez, like between Breath of the Wild and Jason Momoa as Aquaman and the Shape of Water, it was an excellent year for sexy aquatic men.
It's a very moist year for
right?
fishmen.
Oh my fucking god! Okay, hang on. I have to recompose myself here. Okay.
This isn't Random Encounter. We can't give it like a fun title like that.
2017 year of moisture. Out of moisture.
Side down, right on.
Side down, right on. Oh god, I played Breath of the Wild for the first time too. Actually, I literally just got a Switch last week.
Nice.
I'm excited. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So how many dreams have you had about Prince Sidon?
I actually haven't met him yet. Because I have spent a ton of time this game is hitting the adventurous notes of my gaming style, where I'm just like, I see something, I want to check it out. I comb in most games. I tend to comb over areas looking for every collectible I can find. So Breath of the Wild is going to take me a while, because I'm just like, oh, what's that over there?
Discovering something. There's nothing cooler than just happening upon something.
It's like the Koroks. You can do the puzzle here.
Oh, the Koroks. Yeah. The Korok seeds are going to be the death of me.
I'm not okay. I have about again. I'm probably ready for the end game stuff, but I found about 70 shrines. But I think only 20 Koroks. I'm nowhere near gonna get all the Koroks. F that forever. But I might try and get all the shrines.
If you see a stump, then just play around with it.
If you see a rock, if you see a stump, then I don't know, mess around and see if you can figure something out. But there are so many Korok seeds. Aren't there 500 of them or something stupid?
700.
Gah!
Is there really?
What? No, I thought it hit the full 900.
Get the F out of here.
Yeah, there's 900 of them, but you only need 441 to max out your inventory.
Yeah. Okay,
sweet Lady Mercy.
You can get all 900, and you get a prize for it, and it's.
What's the best prize?
Isn't the prize like a shirt or something?
No.
It's even better. Spoiler alert! You get a golden poo.
It's literally a golden turd, and I love it.
That's like some Takeshi's challenge stuff. Or like where beat Takeshi calls you a loser for beating his game.
If this was a PS4 game, there would be a trophy, a bronze trophy for getting that golden poo, and it would drive people completely batty.
It's like
that
how
was
beating
the point, yeah.
It's like how beating Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1 is a bronze now. Like, really?
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. All the super bosses are bronzes in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Right, so that golden turd is a perfect metaphor for Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
But anyway, Nathan, you voted for Breath of the Wild as well. Is there Rob went over the how the non-linearity and the promise of seeing something and being able to visit there is a big hook. We talked about the characters. We talked about the collectibles. Is there something about Breath of the Wild that stands out to you really strongly?
So Breath of the Wild to me it's crazy how much a series can depart from its previous entry. I think that was one of the big things, because it's kind of like how Skyward Sword was kind of this linear kind of smaller world, and then Breath of the Wild is like, no, we're just gonna toss all of that out and just gonna give this huge open world to explore.
It really answered the qualms of like all the people who said the games were becoming a bit stale. Like they just completely,
just completely flipped the table.
Yeah, and they've kind of made it a new standard. I almost feel.
I think the only Zelda game that really delivers on the okay, Breath of the Wild is the only one that really delivers on true nonlinearity, I think. But it fulfills the non-linearity promise of the original Legend of Zelda better than any other game in the series. It's like, and all right, I'm going to say something that I may regret saying later. Shout out to Rob Steinman, who recently retired or semi-retired from RPG Fan. I think this is the Dark Souls of Zelda games.
Ooh.
It kind of is.
Like, despite all my qualms with the game, I would gladly play another version of it in a heartbeat. Like, there's no question that I would play anything like Skyward Sword again. I definitely would. Even though I have a lot of issues with Skyward Sword, and I think we've kind of been hinting at that.
I'm really curious to see where they take Zelda next after.
Yeah,
Jesus, how do you follow this? I mean,
but
what the heck?
We wanted the same thing about Ocarina of Time, and they still managed to follow up with Majora's Mask. So.
Well, they need to bring back dodge roll. They need to bring back dodge rolling.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
I miss rolling.
Yeah, the hopping side step is not as fun as a roll, but I do love just timing your dodge for follow up strikes. That's great.
Cool.
And
I like that.
But you do that a little bit in Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, but
yeah.
I do miss rolling.
They never really give you the enemies to really test out your sword in Twilight Princess. Mm-hmm. You get a few dark nuts here and there, but not enough.
I gotta tell you the story because this happened to me last night. I killed my first guardian. I was poking around Kakariko Village and my first spider walker showed up and shooting big dreams at me, and I'm like,
I think I know where that one is.
yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, it's on. So, and I actually had a guardian weapon from the previous shrine, the combat one. So I equipped it. I jumped onto its head, and I got a few good hits in, enough that it fell onto its side. And I just went to town with a sledgehammer, hitting it, cutting off its legs. It took me 2 minutes, like 2 straight minutes of me standing behind it where it couldn't hit me.
Stressful 2 minutes too, like
going.
That's one thing about Breath of the Wild. It is a stressful game.
And then
the most stressful part of all is that your weapons don't last.
And then it blew up, and then another one showed up.
Like,
oh, dang it!
Oh, I love seeing like people's stunts for that game. They're so cool.
Yeah, I've seen Hideki Kamiya on Twitter. He does a lot of that.
We mentioned how their breakable weapons are maybe one of the more frustrating parts of the game. I read this article from I think it was from a Kotaku editor who had been playing Breath of the Wild like crazy, had collected a bunch of really good weapons and arrows, and his 5-year-old son got into his save file and used up all of his ancient weapons and all of his ancient arrows. which sounded like just the worst. But anyway, we've been talking about Breath of the Wild a lot. It's a really excellent game. One last thing about Breath of the Wild, I forget which of us said it, but they were talking about like how are you supposed to follow Breath of the Wild, and then we went back. How are we supposed to follow Ocarina of Time? And we got Majora's Mask. So, do we like the idea of instead of Nintendo going bigger, Nintendo going weirder would be an ideal follow-up?
Oh yeah,
that'd work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right, okay, that was a surprisingly easy consensus. Okay.
I think
Great debate.
I don't need another giant open world map. Like if they want to do another open world game, that'd be cool. But I feel like in terms of sheer scale, I don't want them to top it so much as I want them to compound what they've done.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
The
go
entire
from
lessons,
there.
the
yeah.
entire game
Yeah.
is just Kakariko Village and exploring the bottom of the well and the Shadow Temple and all the urban legends of
God.
Kakariko Village.
And it's actually a Castlevania game.
All right, yeah.
Simon Belmont just
Please.
like, what is going on here?
Link, you didn't know this, but you're actually the heir to a great legacy. Here, take this whip.
He says nothing.
Rinku Belmont.
Link Belmont, wielder of the Master Whip.
Yep. Oh man,
Oh, no,
sword,
it's like
sword,
the
sword in
Ivy's
one
chain
hand,
whip thing.
sword in one hand, whip in the other hand. Do it, Nintendo. The people have spoken. But anyway,
Whip.
that's a lot of Breath of the Wild talk. We gotta get a move on, or else this podcast will be 3 hours.
I'm so hungry.
You're the one that wanted this to be 3 hours, and now you're just
You know,
gonna be hungry though.
talking and getting more and more winded.
Well, another one of our final four is the only 2D entry in our final four Zelda games for discussion. That is A Link Between Worlds for the 3DS. I love this game a lot. It is my favorite Zelda game. When we voted, I threw it on there as my favorite.
Is there anything cooler than knowing the layout of the game because you played it like 20 years ago, and then you just kind of like, all right, I know where the church is.
But then but then instead of noticing the similarities, you also notice the differences. Like
Yeah.
they switch the locations of Turtle Rock and the Ice Palace, and they get rid of the Swamp Dungeon and instead add a dungeon on the in the center of Lake Hylia in the Light World, and Ravio.
That the bomb flower dude raps to you.
Yeah, and Ravio is like my favorite Zelda NPC maybe ever. I love that dude, especially with
Ravio,
the end game twist involving him. But
that is actually probably the most satisfied I've ever been with the Zelda game ending.
when I see like
I think
Ravio
that's the only time I've ever felt like really
God.
that was good. That was a great way to end it.
Ravio and
no
Hilda
dangling
are great.
participles.
Yeah, they're wonderful characters.
Yeah.
And the dungeons
Oh,
themselves,
Ravio,
they're a little different from traditional 2D Zelda dungeons, because I mean we might talk about this in other episodes this month, but most of the time it's you go into a dungeon, you got to find the special dungeon item, you got to solve puzzles with that item, find the key, and then fight the boss. But in this, because you have all of the special dungeon items available at the very beginning of the game, it throws those steps out of whack. It's just full of puzzles dedicated to that item, and the dungeons are sometimes a little bit more linear, sometimes a little bit more pathed than like earlier Zelda dungeons of the 90s and 2000s.
You get the freedom of choice, but it kind of does affect the dungeon work, which it's a good trade-off for this time, I think. You know, a lot of the Zelda games try to do something different. If that's what this one wanted to do, I think it kind of works.
Yeah,
out.
I agree. Yeah. I think the puzzles are good, but the loop feels different, and I'm not sure if it's better or worse. But
I like it better. I just kind of like that idea of that, because it's kind of like a low kind of Zelda light experience when it's on handheld. So I think it's kind of nice that you get to kind of just play at your own whim.
Yeah, I love the freedom that the item rental system provides to you, and I love buying and upgrading your items, like because once you
the upgrades are so fun.
Once you get the powerful upgrades, like the
all of the fire staff is just completely
all of the magic rods just can annihilate everything in a room when you use them, especially the fire and ice ones. And the sand rod is an interesting choice for a new weapon, basically sort of replacing what the Cane of Samaria used to do. But the items are really cool. The dungeons, I love them. The second half of the game is maybe even better.
I thought the dungeons were actually really tight. Like, they play really nicely within a lot of the themes that they're doing for each game.
Yeah, they're tightly designed. I think that's a good way to put it.
One thing I like is, like, Nintendo really loves taking advantage of each of its systems' gimmick, right? And I do like, how the 3D-ness is kind of trapped between the 2D-ness of the top-down view and the 2D-ness of, like, being a painting, So I thought Nintendo had a lot of fun kind of playing with 2D and 3D realms, literally and gameplay-wise.
It's also one of the only 3DS games where using the 3D actually enhances the experience, like, because you can turn it on to help check depth perception.
Yeah.
And some of the things were like when you go outside the dungeon in the wind tower, which is one of the the wind dungeon that's in the first half of the game. When you have the 3D on, like the tower pops out of the map better, and there's even a feeling of sort of standing on the edge of a cliff sometimes.
I like that they actually contextualize the dark world a bit better. Like they actually kind of give it a bit more plot. You know, like you actually see all these citizens are kind of scared and they're wearing monster masks this time to kind of just join in the fear. Like it's sort of dark, but it's a lot of fun way to kind of recontextualize a lot of the stuff that happened in the first game.
And the Light World's Princess Zelda and the Dark World's Princess Hilda have
low
these are
low
both
rule.
high rule and low rule, right? I know. I don't love that either. But each of them having their own sort of struggles that are shaping what's happening to each of their worlds. I was really impressed by all of that.
It was clever.
Nathan, have you played A Link Between Worlds?
I did. I didn't play like a ton of it, but I played like a good I don't know, say 5 or so hours.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'd love to be able to basically do dungeons in any way you wanted. That's really helped open it up. I think that was the first time where it's been a big departure for the series, so being able to do that.
Well, I mean, you could do that in A Link to the Past as well. You had to do the first 4 in order, but then the next 6 you could do in any order. But this is a better delivery on the idea of whatever whatever order you want.
Yeah.
I feel like you can kind of see a shift in like Nintendo's design philosophies going from the Wii to some of the 3DS and the Switch now. The games just kind of feel a bit different.
But that's part of the thing about like Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword was felt like Nintendo felt like so full of mistakes that just wanted to just throw it all out and just make something new.
Yeah,
so
I think they've kind of caught on
to that.
To people wanting something a little bit different from their games.
And it's, I mean, we alluded to this before, but also just reusing the map almost wholesale from A Link to the Past and seeing the different, and if you are like me, and I guess also Rob, since you voted for A Link to the Past, seeing the, noticing the differences as well as the similarities, it makes A Link Between Worlds even more rewarding if you play in, A Link to the Past.
I always thought the one weird thing was the Zora Queen in that. I did seeing Zora as people now instead of just angry fish monsters.
Yeah, well, I think that's definitely more informed by the Zelda's games that happened in between Link to the Past and Link Between Worlds.
Yeah. I love the way Link looks as a painting too. That kind of he looks kind of confused half the time.
Yeah, he is. It's like an Egyptian hieroglyph with a very confused face.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought that was a really solid title, and I love the way it wraps up at the end.
The ending is beautiful. The characters are surprisingly likable. It does the Ocarina of Time thing where you start to see, I'm gonna slow down a little bit. In A Link to the Past, sort of all of the maidens that you rescue are already captured before the game begins, except for Zelda herself. But in Link Between Worlds, you sort of meet them all one by one, and then you notice them disappearing one by one.
The game paces itself out really nicely, actually, with that in mind. Yeah, because they kind of give you the ground tutorial and all that kind of stuff, and I don't know, I thought it was a really cool game, and it even has a hard mode. And a super monster dungeon.
The hard mode is actually fairly challenging. You deal less damage and take more damage, and there's more monsters in areas that didn't have as many before. But it's so it's not just a damage change. But and I started the hard mode game and got to the second half, but I had never finished it. I think I'd have to.
I
have to go back and check.
Baseball too. They had a pretty sweet baseball minigame in it.
Oh, and through friend passes, spot passes and street passes, you can meet other people's links and then fight them in arenas.
Oh, I just squealed every time I played that. It was awful. I couldn't play it anymore in public. Yeah, it was just really bad.
Yeah, I can't play video games in public because I curse at the handheld too much. But anyway, speaking of curses, I guess there's a princess with a curse, and you got to help her in The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess for GameCube and Wii.
Sorry, this one's special.
Yeah, Twilight Princess had 3 votes, but 2 of our voters listed it as their favorite. And Peter, you were
Peter?
Yeah,
was it you?
Of course it was.
Yeah.
So Peter, I know that Twilight Princess is your favorite. Tell us what you think are some of the best parts of it.
So, I mean, and in full disclosure, I am biased because Twilight Princess was my introduction to the series, so I just kind of credit it with getting me on this whole crazy Zelda ride. But I think it's the Ocarina of Time formula, but perfected. I think they took the logical conclusion to that type of game that they were making, and this is the best version of it. I love the kind of darker atmosphere. It's still got a sense of humor about itself, but it's also I just like the art style in general. I think works really well.
I think it's actually you I quote every time I say it's probably the most fleshed out version of Hyrule that we've really seen. That actually makes it feel like a populated place.
Into. Yeah, they do a really good just sense of world building and like telling their story and giving the Twilight Realm and its denizens like they get backstories, and Midna and Zant are two of the best characters in this franchise. Like I love Twilight Princess. I even like the hunting for Tears of Light is kind of annoying, I guess, but I love the atmosphere of those sections.
It's one of the quality of life features they put in the HD one. They actually removed a few of those, you know.
Yes, so you can find less. You can hunt insects less and enjoy the kind of weird, creepy, foreboding atmosphere of those Twilight sections instead.
I love the coloring in it too. Like I think some of the lighting effects. It is part of like the shitload of Bloom era in gaming, but I mean, I do feel like it has a really nice atmosphere. That's like the best those systems could pull without.
Yeah, it looked amazing. It looked amazing for the time, and
it had like a very washed out palette, but the lighting effects are really, really nice and strong, which really works for a game that kind of touts its light and dark visual very literally.
Yeah, so that was just awesome. I love how once you finally unlock your wolf form, and then you can start using it in dungeons, like switching between the two. It's just so cool.
Yeah,
you get
I like
pretty early on too. You get to explore a lot of Hyrule pretty openly. It's nice and pretty big. I know some people say that's a bad thing, but I get it.
I don't. I've heard people complain about the Twilight Princess map. I don't think it's that bad. It's sort of a loop. It's sort of just like it circles the castle.
It's perfect for your horse.
It's perfect to just play. You can ride a circuit around it basically, and it feels less empty.
Everywhere around it. Yeah, you can kind of go in between it as well too.
It definitely feels less empty than the world map in Wind Waker or Ocarina of Time, but it's pretty dense and there's a lot to do. A lot of mini games. It's textured, even though it doesn't feel vast, like impressively vast, or maybe not quite as dense as the variety of things you can do in Majora's Mask, but I think Twilight Princess is a good world map.
Most importantly, though, I think personally it has the best set of dungeons. Like for each set of dungeons, like all 8, I think the 8 featured in that game are the strongest overall.
The individual dungeons are super super good. I love the Sasquatch Manor House. I don't know what it's called. I don't remember what it's called.
Snow Peak Ruins.
Yeah, Snow Peak Ruins are unlike any other Zelda dungeon, and there's I love just the characterization of the happy Yeti trying to cure his wife's cold, and you have to find ingredients for the soup, and the wife ends up being possessed by a giant ice monster. It's like, what's going on?
That's great. I love the Arbiter's Grounds is a good one too.
Yeah, that one's fun.
Is Arbiter's Grounds the desert one?
Yeah.
Okay, this is, I don't know if this is controversial or not. Maybe I maybe even mention this in other episodes. I think the Arbiter's Grounds dungeon is awesome. I hate that there is no use at all for the spinner outside of the Arbiter's Grounds.
No, that's fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's fair.
I feel like a lot of Zelda games are like that, though.
Some are better about it than others.
Ones.
Well, I think in
you get the hookshot last almost in Wind Waker.
But I don't know. When I go back to Link to the Past or Link's Awakening, like in Link's Awakening, all of the items unlock more parts of the map, except for the very last item you get. But for the first 6 or 7 dungeons, all of those items are important in the world map. And in Breath of the Wild, I think there's less of that. Like the dungeons are crafted amazing, but the interactive and the your arsenal of items is pretty cool. Like getting a double hook shot with those claw shots is kind of awesome. But,
love that.
Yeah, but
better than a long shot. We'll just give him 2 of them.
Right?
Yeah, no, and and that's actually that's funny because I think in that case the reverse is true. I love the double claw shots, and I love the boss fight in that dungeon, but I'm not really a big fan of the City in the Sky in general.
No.
I think the layout is really confusing, and oh my god, the music is the music. Yeah, you're giving me flashbacks.
It's so weird to say those cuckoos have weird.
I thought you said this
was
your favorite one.
It is my favorite one, but I have very specific qualms with it.
Right.
I played through it 5 times. I'm allowed to have
I like Twilight Princess a lot. Again, I've only really finished. I guess if you count the original Legend of Zelda, I've played 11 Zelda games. I think this one ranks maybe sort of in the middle-ish for me. It's not my favorite, but it does a couple things really, really well. Zant is an interesting character that feels more like a threat, that feels more like a present threat and less like someone in the background like Ganon often is. And it's very well characterized. The dungeons are awesome. A lot of fun.
They did a really good job animating her too, like to make her actually look very animated and appealing for a game that's really silent.
Minna's way better than Fi or Navi.
Just about anybody, really.
I like Fi too. I think her design and idea is phenomenal. It's just she just talks too much about things that you literally
Right, women never shut up. Am I right? Yeah, let's just joke about misogyny a lot. I'm sorry.
Ouch, Mike.
And I'm hungry.
So, well, I mean, it's Steph needs to eat dinner. So, should we move on to the fourth game in our final four? Or
Sure.
All right.
Wind Waker.
That's the oldest of these four. We only picked games from the past 17 years. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker for GameCube, which also had a Wii U remake that was well received. Guys, right away, I love the cell shading. I love the cartoony look. But he looks like the elf that wants to be a dentist in the Rankin Bass Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoon.
This is true.
Even down to the snooty face, I guess.
Down to the hair, the way the hair peeks out of his cap. I mean, it's uncanny.
Why am I such a dipshit?
No, it's dimwit. It's dimwit, but I like your version better. No, it's. I think it's dimwit or misfit. It's depending on the verse. Whatever. I've seen those Rankin Bass specials way too much. But
this is true.
The Wind Waker. There's a lot of water, a lot of rafting, but the game is beautiful. It plays remarkably smoothly.
Or only swimming. You cannot go under. I think. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for all the water, you cannot actually go underwater in that one.
There's no Zora mask or no flippers. You really, really can't stay in water long. You've really got to be in that boat. But I think
that seems like a problem. I mean, if you're gonna get a hero, you should get one that can swim for longer than 15 seconds.
This is true, but
it could be worse. It could be GTA, where every water is poison.
That's true.
Or you just touch water and die.
What's happened to?
But the thing that really impressed me about Wind Waker, and again, I didn't play any 3D Zeldas until 2011, 2012 range. Is that it felt like the first Zelda game that really had scale. Like there's scale in Ocarina of Time when you're going up the middle of the tree in the forest dungeon and the fire dungeon's real big, but with the Wind Waker,
I guess that's really what sets it apart. Is that it's the one game that really feels like a big Zelda experience.
Everything feels fast. All of the dungeons feel enormous in that game. When you're gliding down from floor to floor, there's a feeling of scale in it that I think is only matched by in that generation of consoles by, I don't know, maybe your God of War 2s or your Shadows of the Colossi, but it's the scale of Wind Waker is amazing. There aren't very many dungeons. I think there's only maybe 5 or 6. I don't remember. I have to check the list.
It does suck that you go back to the first one, the Forsaken Fortress.
Oh yeah, that
wasn't
fortress
even
thing.
That good the first time.
Yeah, the weird purple pirate base thing.
Yeah, that was a really bad start in my opinion. I do love the game though.
But also, this is the first. I think it's the first game that has Ritos and Koroks in it, right?
Yeah, I think it introduced to them.
I nearly like my young Zelda following mind was blown when I was like, oh my god, those are Kokiri and Zora.
Yeah.
Wow. And I like the Gorons are just kind of situated randomly because I guess they're rock people, so they're kind of struggling.
Yeah, I don't really understand how that evolution happens. I think they might have retconned it for Breath of the Wild because now all of the races of Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time are separate, or at least seem that way.
I think Breath of the Wild may have started a new timeline, but it's still because beforehand it was
good because it's a good ass timeline if it's coming from Breath of the Wild.
But beforehand it was like a split off from the ending of Ocarina of Time.
I think the less we talk about Zelda timelines in detail,
I have the book. Wait, let me go get it.
I know that it's timeline. I know that they do follow rules, but those rules are bonkers. And if I wanted a bonkers time travel story, I would just watch Kamen Rider Den-O. Heyo.
Wow, that's a great way to shut down the conversation.
Yep.
Like, thanks for that.
Yeah, you just get me talking about tokusatsu shows, the way to instantly end any conversation. Like, you get the foghorn.
For real though, Wind Waker kind of is like almost a weird prototype of Breath of the Wild. Like, in terms of the scale, the kind of apocalyptic setting.
One thing I like is I think it's the one that really started to go all in on the weird NPC thing.
Oh yeah. God, my favorite of all is the shopkeeper that goes sploosh.
I randomly say that every couple months just out of nowhere.
I like doing the telescope guy that.
And oh my
it's
God,
like a 9-second clip of him.
We really can't talk about weird NPCs without getting into. Isn't this the first game with Tingle?
Technically, no.
No, Majora's Mask.
Oh, he was in Majora's Mask. Okay, I didn't play that long enough.
But this is where he lives on in infamy, because you find him in a cell filled with skulls.
But yeah, they really doubled down on character wackiness in Wind Waker in a way that, I mean, Zelda always had wackiness in its characters scattered around, but I think they really went, they really went full hog on this one. Yeah.
But I like the cartoony look, though. It definitely helped it age well. But I even like the kind of beefy, like, pirate dudes with, like, little spiral hairs on their chest. Or even, seeing, like, little spiral of winds kind of off in the distance. Like, it really sells the aesthetic incredibly well. It's so pretty.
Yes,
even the boss designs are a lot of fun because of this kind of cartoony aspect. Like, the Korok, the Bird King, I forgot his name. But yeah, no, I just thought all the enemy designs were just fantastic looking because it really embraced that aesthetic.
I love how expressive all the faces are.
Yeah.
That's one thing you can't get out of a realistic Zelda. Is you can't get those crazy facial expressions.
I mean, they do it pretty well in Breath of the Wild, but again, this game is 15 years after Wind Waker, so the technology's improved a little bit.
What, like Twilight Princess when it cuts back to Link's like face going, ah.
I don't know what you're doing, but it's a lot of fun. I don't know when he come back to Link and he went, but
the characters in Twilight Princess, they seem almost more like wooden dolls to me, while in Wind Waker they're just more expressive and cartoony in a way that I thought that I thought was fun. And
I like how Gorons are kind of trying to lay low or something. They're kind of hiding their faces. They're at such a disadvantage, man. They're rock people. I just see like a Weekend and Bernie's thing happening where they're just kind of walking along the bottom.
That's why Sidon has such beefy shoulders, because they used to be Gorons. He's got Goron DNA.
Some of the cut content is really a bit of a put down though. Like that, the fact that they kind of cheat you out of a third dungeon.
Oh, a third dungeon for the second half alongside the Earth and Wind ones.
And the first half, you're supposed to get the 3 pearls, so you got your tutorial dungeon that tells you about that. Then you got the pearl at the Forest Haven, the pearl on the Dragon Roost Island, and the third one is at a destroyed island.
Oh, and they cut the destroyed island.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
So a lot of people are saying like, oh, that was cut content. A lot of people were hoping that would be worked into like the HD. It was not, because usually a lot of their dungeon ideas just go into future games. Mm-hmm. So like there was not really enough room or time or assets to really make a whole new dungeon. But yeah, that's always one of the big ones that stands out.
Yeah, we like Wind Waker a lot, but I mean, what do we feel about navigating the ocean and the end?
Well, it got better in the HD one.
It got better there, but it was pretty cumbersome at times, changing the wind direction and navigating around in the older version of the game. I haven't played the remake.
For the most part, though, like it was pretty easy though. Like it didn't take very long, and I think it stayed that way until you departed, right? Like it wouldn't just randomly change wind directions on you, would it? I don't think so.
Not really. Maybe if
you
went a long
changed the wind,
distance.
It stayed put. It started off in a random direction at first, but I mean, it would stay put if you controlled the wind.
I think some areas of the game will automatically have the wind change. Like when you get to a certain area, the wind always has to come from an eastern side at first, just to mess you up. But once you can change directions, I think it stays pretty consistent. And I also have to ask. I'm assuming all of us have played it since most of us voted for it.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had a chance to play the HD remake though.
It was good.
What do we think about the Triforce hunt in the second half of the game?
You know what? Even in the HD remake, where they made it a lot better, it still sucks.
Like, I like the idea of it, but I really don't like hunting for those damn pieces.
The fact that like the Triforce is such a big deal, it really takes, pardon the pun, but it really takes the wind out of your sails. Like,
boom! Oh man,
it's like, wow, I got the Triforce. Finally, damn it! It was such a downer. And it's so weird. A lot of us put this on the list because it does afford you a lot of freedom, and there's a lot of great ideas, and you have a lot of fun with the look of it and the style and the music. It's just there's a lot again that just kind of takes the jelly out of your donut.
Yeah, it's really good, man.
Going with all these.
Steph is full of similes and metaphors today. But and I think it's a little remarkable that this did make the list because 4 people voted for it, but no one picked it as their favorite. So maybe it's a game that we all like and we all admire for various reasons, but it doesn't resonate as strongly as our other favorite Zelda games.
Like Breath of the Wild. A lot of us don't like the Guardian dungeons, and that's a pretty big part of it, and even some of the shrines aren't really that impressive, but like you still rank it really highly because there's still a lot in its concept that's really good.
I love the dungeons in Wind Waker. I wish there was more of them is the problem, because it, like, I mean, coming from Ocarina of Time and A Link to the Past, which have, I think, 10 and 12 dungeons respectively, going down to 4.5 or 5 for Wind Waker is a real bummer.
And I think Nintendo even said, like, yeah, we cut a bunch of dungeons from Wind Waker where that Triforce quest was going to be, and but they retrofitted them into Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
I guess Skyward Sword, had like a decade of dungeon design manifest when that finally came out, and I haven't played Skyward Sword.
That's
why the dungeons in Skyward Sword are so good.
It's because they've been working on them for a decade. Well, all right, we talked a lot about these final 4. Do we have any final thoughts on Wind Waker before we move into the next phase of the podcast?
No.
All right.
I like stabbing Ganondorf in the face.
That's one of the best ones.
That is the most brutal kill in the entire Zelda series. Is Tiny Toon,
for the kitty aesthetic, for what it is, like, yeah, you did not expect Ganon to go out that way.
Yeah, and Ganon is so much bigger than Link in this one. Like, when you're like rolling around and dodging his strikes, it's almost like a Shadow of the Colossus battle.
That was a really cool set piece too. The whole like water funneling in and everything, like that just looked really cool.
It's a good Ganon fight, and there's a lot of good Ganon fights throughout the whole series.
Yeah.
But I think Steph is hungry and needs to eat, so we should move this podcast along.
Thank you.
Okay, listeners, we are going to take a break for a few minutes, and I'm going to collect votes from from my other 4 panelists. And when we return from the break, we will have an official favorite Zelda game of Retro Encounter. And now, I wish we had sponsors to provide words from. I wish we had sponsors. I think I'm just going to throw some random Zelda music in there.
Mad Cat.
Power Glove.
This episode of Retro Encounter brought to you by
Squarespace.
Power Glove.
Does this mean they have to pay us now? I don't know. And we're back. We took a break for about 5 or 6 hours. I think Steph drove to Nathan's house to fight him for her dinner. I don't really know how Canada works. It's they do things differently over there.
Stole his maple syrup.
Oh no, gotta give my syrup back.
Man, the syrup-based economy really confuses me. I've only been to Canada twice, but both times it was syrupy.
I mean, I guess it makes more sense than whatever Zelda's economy is, because rupees.
Is it based on rupees or moblin
tails? The entire Hyrulean deficit is in jars. I mean,
I'm amazed that every single merchant in the game can spend thousands of rupees to buy your amber off of you.
Well, Mike, you sounded really robo there for a second.
Oh, I did? Oh, maybe my internet's starting to die, which means I really should get to the end of this soon. The votes are in. They're all the point numbers. All of the votes ended up with different values, so there's no ties. So I'm going to go from 4th to 1st. Retro Encounter's official favorite Legend of Zelda game. Coming in 4th place with no first place votes is Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. We all like it, but we don't like it enough to say it's our favorite.
We all agreed, eh?
No, we didn't all agree, but it was the second favorite of a couple people, but nobody picked it first.
Nice, okay.
And coming in second place with a one first place vote, you'll never guess who it's from, is Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds. Again, we like it, but not enough for it to crack the top. Coming in second place with 2 first place votes is The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I know it's a good one, but didn't quite crack the top. And number 1, coming in first with also 2 first place votes, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild is your retro encounter. Yeah, encounter. Where'd that come from? Legend of Zelda game. The Legend of Zelda encounter. But anyway, Breath of the Wild won the poll. It is officially our favorite Zelda game here at Retro Encounter. Thank you so much for going through this exercise.
Send your hateful emails to
retro@rpgfan.com for our blatant, awful recency bias. Breath of the Wild got 2 first place votes, 2 second place votes, and 1 third place vote. So it's all 4 of us like it quite a lot, even if it's not everybody's favorite. It is the compromised favorite of the podcast. So I guess that about wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for other panelists for joining me today. I know it was a little grueling. This is running a little bit longer than most of our episodes here at Retro Encounter. Next week, we're continuing Zelda Month with a special Link's Awakening episode. And then later this month, I don't know exactly which order yet, we're going to have one episode exploring Zelda tradition, and another episode all about The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap, which won a public vote a month ago or so. And coming up in May, we haven't planned out all of May yet for Retro Encounter, but we are going to have 2 episodes about that Super Nintendo classic, Super Mario RPG: Legend of the Seven Stars. That's an RPG that many people at RPG Fan like, so I know it's going to be fun to record.
Do you have a lot of people for that one?
It's only a couple. So if you want to sign up, Steph, I think there's still room.
Hint.
TRB. Go do that now.
Okay. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun to record. I am going to play that thing on my shiny, recently bought Super Nintendo Classic, so that's going to be a blast. And I don't know exactly what else is happening in May, but 2 episodes will be about Mario RPG. If you want to email us, I think I mentioned it a few minutes ago, but you should do so using retro@rpgfan.com. You can also visit the rpgfan.com message boards, visit RPGFan on Facebook, or on Twitter @rpgfancom. If you want to give us direct podcast feedback, not via email, please review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you're getting this podcast from. We love feedback, whether it's email or a comment from there. We read everything that is directed to us.
And I love to feed.
Yep, Steph is our social media mistress, and she absorbs a lot of feedback.
I feed off your feedback, yeah.
Oh, okay. So we can just send you feedback instead of you eating dinner. Is that okay? We can just have this podcast go another hour or 2, so you're not eating.
I suck in human anxiety and eat it. Yeah.
I was just say, I don't think Steph can subsist on our feedback, even if she.
She can't subsist on it, but it might help. So please send us feedback so Steph can survive.
Thank you.
And there's also a lot of other great RPG fan content. We have another podcast, Random Encounter, which was hosted by Rob Steinman for many years, and going forward shall be hosted by Derek Heemsbergen, who is talented and charismatic and is going to be a terrific host, I'm positive. And we also have Twitch streams going on basically every night. A few dedicated streamers and some guest streamers. Steph, you've done some streaming for RPG Fan before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I remember for a while you had a Tales of Stephonia thing going on, but now you can check out Scott and Kyle and all of our great streamers on RPG Fans page on Twitch. But now
I'm
going
for Scott to take the reins on that one. I hope he will one day. My equipment died, so I just couldn't do it anymore.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that's why you stopped. But all right. Well, anyway, if you want to reach us individually, let's talk about how to do that. Starting with you, Nathan, how should listeners reach out to you?
Alright, so you can email me my RPG Fan email, nathanl@rpgfan.com, or you can contact me on Twitter. I am at SmashKing27.
All right.
I'm talking to you on there too.
Rob, your turn.
My forum handle is Beardy McBeardface. RPG Fan email is robr@rpgfan. I don't really have a Twitter account. I'm more of a lurker on Twitter.
When someone tells me they don't have a Twitter account, I think my reaction is more admiration than horror. Definitely, it's like Twitter's not good for me. I'm on it way too much, and maybe I am slightly jealous of people that cannot be on it.
I'm still on
your website.
I'm still on it. I'm lurking. I don't. So
that's
make
probably
sure
for the
if I
best.
find anything cool, I'll send you a message because Rob, I think you and I have a lot of interests at heart.
All right, Peter. What are your individual social media outlets?
All right, so I have Fury on the boards that we don't use. You
Love
can also find me at I have Fury on Twitter, and I don't really use Discord, so that's a no-go. But Peter at RPGFan.com is also good.
Oh shoot! I think I forgot to mention the RPG Fan Discord. Well, we also have one of those. You can find it on the front page, or just search RPG Fan on Discord. It shouldn't be that hard to deal with.
Figure it out.
You can find me
Figure it out.
I'm smashing on there. I'm on there pretty often.
Okay, you see, it's a non-linear exploration. I'm not going to give you a detailed tutorial. You just got to jump in and figure it out yourself. It's for the best. So, Steph, how can listeners reach out to you?
You can find me. I'm usually responding to you on social media, so say what up to me there. You can also find me at Dice SMS. On Twitter, Facebook, just about anywhere.
And your dice on the forums that we don't use.
Yeah.
And that's for me. I am Monsoon on the forums we don't use. I'm Monsoon Mike on Discord, at The Real Monsoon on Twitter, and I also have a second Twitter account for weird shit called at Evoker for Dogs.
Hey, Mike, if you were a Zelda boss, what would your weakness be?
What would my weakness be?
I have glasses, so it would be my eyes.
So arrows for Steph?
Oh yeah.
All right, Nathan, your turn. What would your weakness be as a Zelda boss?
I'd probably be able to say my eyes. Glasses, My eyes are already terrible, by the way.
Rob, your turn. What's your weakness if you were a Zelda boss, Rob?
Well, I'll say this: you lay down a good bottle of scotch for me, and I'll be entertained. Yeah.
I was hoping your answer would be they have to set fire to my beard with a magic rod.
That's just cruel and unusual.
There you go, that's the weakness.
There we go, yeah.
And my
Never
weakness...
feel bad for the enemies.
I don't know. My weakness is that is probably I don't know. I got really horrible food poisoning a couple weeks ago. So I think my weakness would probably be feeding me bombs to Dongo style.
I feel like that's a good pick.
Clever.
Just ruining my week. And Peter, what's your boss weakness?
Well, I mean, obviously swarthy blonde men in green tunics.
All right, that works, I guess.
My weakness is wall masters.
Oh god!
Oh, those things.
Oh man!
Couldn't get a Zelda thing through without mentioning that real quick.
God, if there was a giant wall master boss fight, I might crap my pants and just
tell you what, Mike. I'm going to be the one guy who's weak to the spinner.
Oh wow, the spinner coming back.
As a lover, yeah, that was my DLC of choice for Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah, by the way, that boss fight was awesome with Stallard.
So
yeah, that
we're squeezing this in while we can, like, oh wait, just some other cool Zelda shit.
So wait, what was our nickname for Breath of the Wild? Was it like Shape of Water 2 or Land Ocean or something?
I've been calling it Winded Breath, and I like it a lot.
All right, so for Winded Breath 2, the spinner comes back. And somehow it'll be useful in the overworld this time. Well, this has been a weird ending. I don't know how we got here. But listeners, thank you. Good night.
We had
Good
fun.
luck. We have
Good
fun.
No, that's Mario.
Hi! Sploosh!